So I was thinking about the difference between sitcoms in the 70s and the 80s.
Mm.
Sitcoms in the 70s were great. In the 80s, not so much.
Did they even use a laugh track in the 70s, or was that a later edition?
They did.
They
They
did.
did.
I thought they did a live studio audience more.
Well, I think they did both, but I mean, if you think about it, so 77, 78, there were shows like Laverne and Shirley, remember the Milk and Pepsi, Boo Boo Kitty, the owl on the sweater. Lenny says his last name, Kosnowski, is Polish for help. There's a hog in my kitchen. The writing was so good. I love the way Lenny and Squiggy, they were kind of like a precursor to Kramer.
Oh, yeah.
Because it would be like
neighbor.
The setups were brilliant. It would be like, no one's that desperate. Hello, they'd come in, It was just the writing was so good in those shows. I mean, and of course, Laverne and Shirley was an offshoot from Happy Days, another show that was great and just had so many great characters in it. The dreaded Malachi brothers in the Smash Up Derby, Susie Quattro as Leather Tuscadero, the Leopard Lodge where he was Grand Poobah with the hat. Fonzie would say stuff to Ralph and Potsy like, "Why don't you two go finger paint in the corner or something?" It's hysterical.
I used to always like they changed it over the years, but the disgruntled guy who ran the cafe where they Arnold,
yeah.
Remember the Arnold changed, but he was always Arnold.
Yeah, it was Pat Morita first or Pat Morita
after
second?
He was second.
Second.
Yeah,
they had the kind of the fatter guy.
Kind of original, a typical Italian looking.
Yeah,
cafe
Arnold, but it didn't change to it. Did they even acknowledge it? Or it was,
no.
Again, that was the thing in the 70s. It was like, what? It's the same actor. Roll it, No, it's not. Yeah, and it was weird how Ronnie Howard in Happy Days, he was basically like an older version of Opie. It was almost like they could have just called him Opie. It was like a continuation because he had the same. He acted the same as he did in Andy Griffith. They should have called it Opie the later years.
And it's another weird thing about that was in the very first season, they had an older sibling named Chuck.
Oh, yeah, the conspiracy of Chuck.
And he was shipped off to college and then apparently joined the Peace Corps or something because inexplicably he is never heard from. No one mentions his name, even at Christmas. He's just gone.
No, it was just Joni and Richie for like the rest of the seasons. It was just like, Chuck who? What are you talking about? Class. Yeah.
It's like when Weird Science, when he's like, our son, and she's like, I don't know what you're talking about.
He's our 16-year-old boy. I don't know what the hell you're talking about, is he? Okay. Three's Company. That show didn't even have to be funny for me. All they had to do was make Joyce DeWitt Schwartz a little shorter, drop Suzanne Summers' neckline a little bit. That's all we were looking at.
I always had a little crush on John Ritter back in the day.
Yeah.
I did.
Fred Roper was great. He would make some kind of off-color comment about Jack, and then the camera would just
the facial.
The face was great. Even later with Mr. Furley. Don says Mr. Furley. It wasn't that bad. Just one more thing. I'm going back to Happy Days. The spin-offs for Happy Days, besides Laverne and Shirley, were terrible. Mork and Mindy was a spin-off because remember Mork was on. Robin Williams was on Happy Days. God, that show sucked. Even Jonathan Winters couldn't save that show. And then there was Joni Loves Chachi. Mercifully, that only ran 2 seasons.
I think they ran out of ideas for lover spats and ridiculous misunderstandings.
Chachi, when I overheard you saying, I'm concerned about her weight, I thought you were talking about me, not the cat. That's why I joined the gym. And they lived happily ever after, and their cat Fabian went on a gluten-free diet.
Does that help?
All right, now we're going to get to probably maybe my favorite show in the 70s, MASH. Now, I do have to say that I only like the early seasons of MASH, like the first 2 or 3 seasons where they had Hawkeye and Trapper and Henry Blake. And they had Colonel Flagg on. Colonel Flagg was this ridiculously paranoid spy. And he would be dictating his code to Radar. Mersey Doots and Doozy Doots, and I'll be home for Christmas. All right, that's a wrap. Go ahead and send that, Or we would say stuff like, I'm with the CIA, but I tell people I'm with the CID, and they'll think that I'm actually with the CIC. Hysterical. And then Henry Blake, when he would say stuff like, there was an episode where it was so cold they were burning everything, right? All the furniture and stuff. And he's on the phone, and he's talking about his office is like echoey because they stolen and burned everything. And he goes, to cut off a man's legs and steal his drawers. I mean, that's just dirty pool. I mean, just laugh a minute stuff. How about this one?
Other shows like All in the Family.
Yeah, I like the law firm of Lebedowitz, and Lebedowitz, Three Savage Jews. That was great. Yeah.
Soap was great.
The Exorcist stuff scared the shit out of me.
Oh
I was
my
kid. Yeah, I
God.
was young.
It was kind of edgy. I remember I wasn't supposed to watch it, but my mom didn't like it, but I would watch it anyway.
Billy Crystal has to have everything written for him. He cannot write funny stuff. Anyway, Barney Miller. Remember that show? That was a good one. Yeah. And didn't All in the Family have some kind of a scandal with they heard the sound of a toilet flushing?
Yeah, that was. It was weird
Edgy.
back in the sitcoms the way we know what real life is, but they always had to have married couples in twin beds. Like they couldn't possibly be having sex, even though they were married.
It's all these rules, yeah.
But you also apparently couldn't actually have a toilet flushing or acknowledge that someone.
So that was one of their big. That was one of their big breakthroughs that they actually had a toilet flushing.
Well, that and the Carol O'Connor's
blatant racism,
blatant racism of the blue collar man. To actually put that out there.
Yeah. My brothers and I were banned from watching Welcome Back Home because all we did was quote it. We would never stop. I think we actually caused damage to my mom's brain cells. Everything we conversed in was from Welcome Back Home. How about Taxi?
Taxi was so funny. I can't think of another show like you got Andy Kaufman, Christopher Lloyd, Judd Hirsch, fucking brilliant writing.
There's that one episode when Jim, I always think of the one where Jim slips something into Louie's coffee and Alex catches him. And he's like, hey, what was that? Did you just put something in his coffee? And he goes, well, it was either a tranquilizer or a Chicklet. And then Louie's like, all right, losers. Rieger. And then Alex goes, I guess we can rule out the Chicklet. And the next thing you know, he starts singing, we were sailing along on moonlight day. And they all fall into character. They know the words. They do like a little dance routine. It's hysterical.
I always like the episode where Jim's in driving class and he's trying to cheat. And he's trying to ask Bobby loudly, what does a yellow light mean? And he can't slow down. So he just keeps saying the question slower. And oh my God, I just remember laughing so hard. And every time they did it, I just laughed harder.
Remember the one where, what was her name?
Mary Lou Henner?
What was her character? Anyway, Mary Lou Henner gets a really bad hairdo from...
Blanca's wife?
No, from this super expensive salon.
Oh.
And it's Ted Danson.
Yeah.
He's a real ass. And her hair is like a mess, right? And Louis walks in and he goes, I haven't seen a mess like that since somebody stuck a firecracker up my uncle's parakeet. That's great.
It's so original.
Yeah. Good, right? I think all the good writers were in the 70s. Fast forward a few years to 85. By then, there's a severe drop in comedy quality. Night Court, really? All I remember is the judge's terrible level jokes, worse than your boss.
Oh, God.
A duck walks into a drugstore and says, give me some chapstick, put it on my bill. Wow. And that was one of the better jokes. The Cosby Show.
Oh,
I mean, do we even need to mention
it?
I love the way they never drank alcohol. Like there would be a scene where Claire and Bill are cuddling up on the couch and the kids aren't home. So they just get out a pear and they slice the pear in an exotic way and feed each other. I'm like, give me a break. No alcohol, give me a break.
Yeah, I always thought he was constantly, it didn't matter what time of year it was. He was in the dad, like really ugly sweater.
Yeah.
The sweaters were tragic. And they always had she was so smart and clever and he was always, just the perfect dad, like logic or whatever he did usually, always worked in the end. Whatever trick he had to use his psychiatry to change what his kids' behavior.
Was nowhere near as good as the 70s shows.
No.
All right. Kate and Allie. Oh, it's awful. For some reason, my mom liked that show. They were always arguing about who was making dinner. Sushi. I'm not supposed to be eating raw fish. Even Kelsey Grammer was on there. She couldn't save that show. I know it was supposed to be like empowering these two women by pulling it together after a divorce, but it was just all they ever did was talk about men.
Right.
So, you know,
And then and when it ended with them getting married off, you know, so
I always kind of hope for a lesbian scene in that show. I thought that would like right the wrongs. You know, nothing like that.
no.
How about Scarecrow and Mrs. King?
Ridiculous premise.
The housewife and the secret agent. What about Mr. King? Did he not even know what was going on?
Apparently, no, he was working 3 jobs. And
Golden Girls have kind of a cult following.
they do. I mean, it's still on TV today.
Yeah.
And it's kind of weird. They put a bunch of old, you know, widowed or single ladies together. One was spacey, one was bitter, one lusty, one spunky. I think it was inspired by the facts of life. They just added on 50 years and factored in Viagra, and boom, you got the Golden Girl.
Family Ties was always pushing some kind of like 80s yuppie lifestyle, but secretly were hippies politics. People used to say that I looked like Michael J. Fox, and be like, oh, he's not funny. No. You know, Cheers and Newhart, I think, were the only good shows back then.
Yeah.
And I think they probably had held over some writers from the 70s. They probably got some of the more of the dream team writers for
They didn't need the ridiculous setups, the, you know, just stupid punny jokes. They were just funny.
Yeah, they were good.
This is the Snaggletooth Rock and Roll Podcast.